Check, 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 check. Check. Check, 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 check. 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 Hello. Do we have audio? Okay. For some reason it's coming really quiet. On the old, it's like coming out super loud out of Cubase. I'm clipping. And for some reason it's really, really quiet in Streamlabs. Anyway, how are we doing? What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm gonna go ahead and put that back in the old performance mode. I'm gonna mute this. What's up? Here we are. It's Thursday. We're on cam. It's gonna be an interesting one. Because we're not gonna be working on the Crimatune, because I was like, I don't have time. And a bunch of other things have been coming up, but I've been wanting to, or been thinking about doing a more talky kind of stream, as in the talky streams of old. And man, there is much to ponder, I guess. I don't know. For some reason, Twitch always says I gotta go in and it always uses like my old settings from like a previous stream instead of using the settings that I tell it to. See all my crap on the floor. Actually, let me see. What's a good angle? What do you think? Too low, you see all the crap. No actual webcam. Anyway, we'll see what happens once we actually get into it a little more. But it's a little chaotic over here. There's been a lot. Anyway, welcome. It's Thursday Corn Stream. Monday we started playing Night in the Woods, and we're gonna continue that through the rest of the month probably. Yeah, that should suffice throughout the rest of the month. And we're gonna continue working on the old Christmas arrangement to the best of my ability throughout the rest of this month as well. Up until, hopefully the 20th, right? So we got 10 days. It's probably a little too optimistic, but we'll see. Hopefully the lighting's not too terrible. I know it's wacky with I didn't really have time to do everything up as I might normally. But today, actually, I'll start with talking about the bass thing first, so I bought this guitar, this bass, used about 12 years ago. It's an Ibanez GSR 200, as you can maybe see. I don't know. You can see that. I don't have a lot of room here. Hold on. Let me try this. Let me unplug this, and then I could show it. So, the old Ibanez 200. I got this for under $200, like 12 years ago, used, and I haven't changed the string since then. Now, I've been playing guitar since like maybe 14 years ago, I think. And since then I've had electric instrument, I've had acoustic, I've had, this bass, and I've probably changed strings on all those instruments less than 10 times in the past like 14 years, right? So this is not of the ordinary for me, because basically I only generally change guitar strings if one of them breaks. I think recently I changed out some guitar strings just because they were really nasty. And that's what I decided to do with the bass, because, you know, it's been a while. The fretboard and everything is pretty gross. But I decided I would try and get at least one done. So I don't know how easy it is to tell on camera, but low E string is new, shiny and new, and the other ones are not. But now for me, it's like, I don't know if I will, you know, maybe it takes some time for the string to sort of break in and mellow out, but I'm like, do I like the sound of the newer string? Do I actually want to change them out? I didn't like snip the old string, so I guess, you know, if I could find a way to finagle it back on, I could put the old strings back on. But I don't know. Can you hear this? Should be coming through. Let me see. It's so loud. Check. Why is my audio suddenly crazy loud now? God, that's annoying. Or it was like super quiet and now it's super loud. Check, check, check. And on the bass a little bit. Let me see. Bass a little bit. All right, so let's see. Can you tell the difference between if I play something on the older strings? Versus, I forgot, I was playing like a riff earlier. It was like, versus if I try to play that on the I feel like I have to articulate close to the bridge if I want that same kind of attack. I don't know if you guys can actually hear the difference over the stream. Let's see. Oh, low, new, old. Oh. I mean, when I'm listening back to the stream, it almost sounds exactly the same. So maybe it doesn't matter too much when it's coming through the speakers, but definitely I could feel it and hear it in here in the room. Also, I think I got, it's hard to tell if I got actually heavier gauges or not. As I mean, I have little dainty fingers that are more suited for guitar anyway. But I was thinking about getting a lighter gauge set, but I was like, I don't know. And the thing, yeah, and then with bass guitar strings being so much more expensive than small guitar strings, you know. But anyway, maybe we'll change some more out during the stream. I don't know yet for sure, but what I want to get into first, I've talked a bit about sort of this like multiple scattered realities, you know, the sense that the world that I occupy, that I live in, that I perceive is just completely detached and completely different than somebody who I might even just come across in my day-to-day, you know. The worlds that we live in are just have almost nothing to do with each other. And this sense of like an unreality where there is no truth and there is no shared experience. It's just like this disjunct like unimaginable, you know. We're just live worlds apart from the people around us. And living through the pandemic is just another facet of that truth. Like the one thing that can be decidedly called true is that we don't have a shared sense of what reality is. And in an event that requires mass cooperation in order to mitigate, you know, death and damage and so on, we are the most ill-equipped culturally to deal with that kind of thing, right? And it's just been, I don't know. I don't think I have to tell anyone that that's a thing, that's a feeling, but I just can't help but think about how just the reason that, you know, our sense of reality is broken down is because of like this massive disconnect in so many different parts of our lives, I guess. I mean, you talk about the sense of alienation, right? Like when it comes to like from alienation from creation, whether it's from the things that you create, either when you're working, or the things that other people create, you know, all the things like this guitar, these strings, this computer, this microphone. There is no sense of like human craftsmanship and human labor that, you know, gather the resources, move those resources to be assembled, and then move those resources to be sold, and then sold the end product to me, you know. Especially now, like people are still going out and shopping and stuff like that, but people are not doing the kind of annual holiday shopping where they're flooding the big retail stores for the most part, in the way that they normally would. So we're doing everything online, and we have, any number of faceless, nameless Amazon warehouse fulfillment people and delivery drivers, getting those things that we want, we see on the screens, to somehow come to us. So there's just really there's that lack of connection to other people. There is obviously the just the very act of having to hide away and isolate yourself from other people. And then there's also the contention with this great dissonance in what anybody is actually supposed to be doing right now. Because we start out and it's like, okay, we're hearing about this disease or whatever coming from China. Who knows if it's going to be a big deal or not? It's hitting other countries. Who knows if it's making our way to us or not? Then it hits us, right? And there's nothing about us culturally or in terms of our infrastructure that is really equipped to handle something like this. So we were ill-prepared, ill-fitted, and we were scrambling from the very beginning. We didn't know what to do, wear masks or not. Can you leave your house? And there was no plan, and there was no consistency. What is it we're supposed to do? So you close things down, right? In order to stop people from, going around and, mingling and doing whatever it is they're going to do that's going to increase the spread. But what we don't do is address, from a government standpoint, from a administrative, leadership, standpoint of, the people who actually are put into power in our society, supposedly because they make the decisions that will benefit us, or we choose them because we feel like they are the ones best fit, at least at the time, to make those decisions. But nobody knew what they were doing, and as time seems to go on, you have to wonder, how much do they even really care? Because, you could tell people, stay home, if you're, say, the governor of California or something like that. But if they can't work and they can't pay for rent and groceries, then what are they supposed to do? If their businesses can't, just freeze for a year at a time, what are they supposed to do? And when there is a lack of clear vision and a lack of clear, okay, here's the game plan and here's what we're trying to do and here's why, from the very beginning, when you start to scramble and you start to figure out a game plan and then you try to just scold everyone into following that, then there's not going to be a lot of, there's not going to be a lot of faith in, what seems to be like a fucking slapdash process. Now, obviously, there are people who take that sense of confusion and that sense of lack of trust, and they sort of almost weaponize it and just be real dickheads about it by yelling at people in Target and making a big deal out of gathering together and not wearing masks. And those people always suck. But there's too much room for doubt and lack of faith when it's been such a shit show from day one, right? I mean, not only the fact that people in power can't address that people need certain things in the society to survive, but also blatant hypocrisy, going hanging out and fancy dinners or whatnot, and breaking quarantine and things like that. When you are a political figure who's making these decisions over people's lives, and you're basically showing how little it matters to you, in such an explicit way. The implicit side is being like, stay home or else, and not giving people any sort of ability to actually do that, and then prioritizing things like the market over human lives. And we've seen every day, like, the actual like cost. We get a sense of the body count, but that's another thing that we are disconnected from, because you can get a number like, 3,000 people died today. Well, okay, I don't think anyone I know died or whatever, so okay, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's I understand it's so exhausting this to sort of carry the weight of that day in and day out for the majority of a year, and it's probably going to be a good chunk of next year, if not the rest of next year as well, because just the way our society is structured and the things that we prioritize, like, that's why we're here. Like, yes, there's the external factor of a pandemic, but like, usually the things that make us so bad, the things that have made us so bad at dealing with this, in a way that keeps the majority of people as safe as possible, our inability to do that is rooted in things that make us fail many people in society under quote unquote normal circumstances. It's just now that there is something that is has the ability to affect a greater swath of society. And yet, at the end of the day, it still seems to hit the same groups the hardest. Poor people, and basically, people in those kind of groups, because every celebrity, every politician, we've seen who's gotten sick has been absolutely fine. And I think about it because I'm on YouTube a lot, and I'm watching different people, entertainers, and it's like, okay, people. Now it seems to be a little easier to get tested, right? But back in the beginning, right, seemed like they didn't want anybody to test. So it's a wonder how we found out that anyone was actually sick or a carrier or whatnot. But now it's like, if you have enough clout, if you have enough viewers, if you're a network program, you can go get a test whenever you need to do a shoot or whatever, so that you can more effectively entertain people without having to like wear a mask and do things from inside your house all the time. So I don't know, like, there's so many different factors that just pull you in so many different directions. Like, I have very little empathy to give for people who are just out there trying to give other people a hard time, harassing service workers, and just being royal assholes. But, because I think, those are the kind of people who would probably find some excuse for that under other circumstances, maybe not as frequently, but, that's part of their MO, right? But, there's the LA Times article about the sort of the South Korean, the findings from this small outbreak in South Korea, where it's like, these people were exposed from 20 feet away in an indoor restaurant over the course of 5 minutes. They were exposed with enough to actually, become infected. And it's like, to this whole thing, like, I haven't been one to like refresh CDC pages every single day and look at the news every single day, but I mean, it all comes to me. It's like back when you like go to like if you go to like a department store at the mall, like, or whatever, like, you can't help, you could never listen to the radio, but if you just go around, you just can't help but hear those top songs. It's like that kind of thing. You just do whatever else, and you just can't help but hear news about the latest updates about the coronavirus, right? But like like when people talk about like thinking and acting logically, like nobody's logical. Nobody operates logically. We can try to, but that's not really how we think. It's not really how we do things. It's much more likely that you're gonna go along with whatever your tribe is doing, and so there are people who are like MAGA idiots who are like, I'm gonna go eat at every restaurant possible and cough in people's mouths and hold hands in the middle of Huntington Beach or whatever with 1,000 strangers. And then there are like liberal types who just like spend every waking moment they can just scolding other people. And one of those groups is probably contributing less harm to society, but both of them are equally in some ways equally ineffective at actually addressing what the issues are. And it's taken the cultural grievance divides of our politics, which has been mostly cultural, like I said, and symbolic and basically pointless for the most part, at least on the level of like individuals like me and you, not like actual like politicians who actually can submit and change policy that actually affects people because of the governing body that controls so many different factors in their lives. But I mean just like ordinary people. But it's like one people are not going to be acting logically anyway. So I find this sense of like people can make their own decisions about this thing is like that's just one of the pillars of our society that makes us so ill fit to address something like this, is because we're all about individual consequence and individual decisions, even though so many parts of our lives are governed by circumstances that are completely out of our control. We have this fetishization of individuality. So it's like, let people make their own decisions, that people can think for themselves and make the best decisions for themselves. They don't need to be under control. Maybe that's true, but it certainly hasn't been true for us, at least the way it's been playing out. Because, well, one, we haven't really equipped people to make their own decisions anyway. It's like, if you need to work to survive, you don't have a choice. You just go work. That's not an individual decision. If you need to, if purchasing things is part of, our system of living, like groceries and whatnot, then we need that system we need that infrastructure and that system to continue to be in place and to continue to run as we're used to, because there's really no other alternative. It's not going to go hunting or whatever. So it's again the whole illusion of choice thing that would normally plague our lives, not in pandemic circumstances, but now that shows up in this way during pandemic. But we're also not equipped, like, not everyone is equipped with the same, like, the latest and greatest, like, knowledge, because again, science and research and data analysis is not something where it's like something happens and you get a readout and we immediately know what the deal is. We immediately know what the best thing to do. I mean, even if that were the case, it would take so long to disseminate, to truly like integrate that, and to expect people to be so like instantaneously flexible on how they live their lives, when we do not live in a society of choice in the first place. We do not have the flexibility for most people to just kind of be able to bounce around and do this or that based on, whatever, some government institution says, you know. And if you really want people to do that, something, you have to sort of, you have to be, you have to give them the ability to do so, and then, you know, probably should incentivize that as well. Because we don't necessarily have the apparatus to just force people to do things either, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing. We don't have armed patrols, you know, keeping people barricaded up in their homes or anything like that. At least for the most part, right? Not for the reasons of COVID, for the most part, I would say. But it's like, how can we expect people to sort of become like armchair epidemiologists overnight and decide how to interpret the latest data about what to do, you know? Because like at first it was like, oh, you don't need masks. Masks should be saved for, you know, healthcare workers. And now it's like, everybody needs a mask. You know, yeah, all you need to do is wash your hands. And then I've seen stuff for like months and months and months of saying like surface contact doesn't matter. And yet everyone's still worried about washing their hands. People who will hang out without wearing a mask are like, oh, no, I just wash my hands and I'll wash my clothes. And even though it's a respiratory thing, you know, it's not about surface contact necessarily for the most part. But then again, how do we really know? Like how reliable and how consistent is the data in that sense? And then, you know, when it's up to interpretation, something that relies on group spread, you can't have interpretation. You need consensus. That's really the only thing, because even if like 50% of people do everything they absolutely could and lock themselves up in a bubble for the next 5 years, if the other 50% are not doing that, then it doesn't matter, right? Because at some point, even if you're locking yourself up in a bubble, you have to have some sort of contact with other people, right? Whether it is like just like for your basic, like the basic way we've structured, you know, living in this society, you know, buying things and going to work and stuff like that, or literally it's just like as a human being, like you have to see other people, right? So it's just like, it's just so, there's a reason we're all exhausted, is because, you know, we have to become scientists, we have to become diplomats and debaters to convince people that we know to not go to COVID parties and cough in each other's mouths. We have to become philosophers to really, like, truly understand what is the context of this world that we're in, and why do we get to this point, and what can we do? What is our answer to these things? And like the biggest response is, you know, it goes back to like Obama, like, don't boo, vote. He's like, don't boo, wear a mask and vote. There you go. You got one extra step. And it's done just about as much, right? We are, it's I don't want to just say like we're fucked, but it is a fucked situation. You know, I can pretty confidently say that. It's so disheartening and draining and frustrating, infuriating to just kind of live in this world, right? Because as someone who like has tried to engage with the greater world around them, at least in my own, you know, before this, you know, in my own isolated way, you know, on the internet and on social media and stuff like that, not necessarily, not like in the same way. It's not like I'm going like I was ever like day to day going out and like going into the community or whatever and trying to like figure out what's the deal. You know, maybe every now and again, in some way. But even like as like a musician and as an artist, you know, we're not, in some way, you can be sort of like a liaison of the people, right? where you can connect with different cultures outside of like maybe the one you grew up with, you know, playing different styles of music and going to different places and whatnot. But as a working musician, for the most part, it's all very transactional, right? You show up to a party, you play, you hang out a little bit, you get your money, you go home. You can learn a little bit that way, but you're not really... It really depends. Sometimes you might be really part of like a communal thing, but for the most part, it's like catering a wedding or something like that, you know? It's just like you're just providing a service and it's transactional. So like trying to, in those circumstances, trying to understand the greater world, but being a little bit separate, right? But now where it's like, this is like a situation that's basically unavoidable by anyone who doesn't have a certain amount of money to just deal with it, right? We have to sort of almost directly engage with things that maybe before it was just sort of an abstract engagement. I can abstractly engage with the suffering of this group of people or that group of people who may be hundreds, thousands of miles away or in a completely different socioeconomic strata or whatever, or whatever the case may be. And then there's going to be that certain amount of separation unless you really, try and connect with different groups and really like ground yourself in the struggles of different people, right? But now the commonality is obviously this massively spreading virus, which again still is not affecting us. It's not an even effect across society. It still reflects the disparities in our social structure, class structure and whatnot. And now even someone who before was trying to engage with a shared struggle between groups who don't necessarily have like really obvious overlap, ethnic or whatever it may be. Now there's just this sense of like, when it really comes to like a massive crisis that affects just about everyone, we still just do not have the capacity. Like, they're really, really, really showing how little they're willing to do. And I say they, Congress, the Senate, the White House, and so on. How little they're willing to do to actually, make a difference in people's lives, save people's lives. We could expand our healthcare infrastructure. We could pay people to stay home. We could do a number of different things. There are a lot of other different approaches that we could have taken, and we could take to at least mitigate the damage that's already been done, right? And yet they continue to flounder as the body count goes up. And so when you look at the effect that has on our interactions with the people in our society, people going fucking crazy and people being horrible to each other and people acting like assholes and dumbasses, people, scolding people for doing this, that, and, it's not like it's completely broken down or whatever, but what does that even mean? Like, what is it that we're holding up anyway? What is the thing? What is the fabric that is being held together, that is necessary to hold together, that we are trying? What is it we're not trying to allow to break apart? Families being broken apart, businesses, industries, so on. But what is the thing that we're trying to save? What has not fallen apart yet? I can still drive down the street. I can go to the grocery store. I can get some gas. I can do all that shit, right? But there's something that's not able to hold together. So why are these things still, operating just fine? But what is it that is actually like remaining necessary in this context? And I just wonder, like, will there be no catalyst? Like, I think everyone just feels so drained and confused, In the middle of the year, we had a catalyst, the re-explosion of a Black Lives Matter movement that has made some strides, but obviously, this is something. This is like it's like a fucking paddle ball, moves out and moves back in, moves out, moves back in. It's been doing that for years, right? And this is probably the biggest, the furthest that discussion, that movement has come in like the popular conscience, right? In the last, like, what was it, like 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. And it went out and it's come back in. It's receded again. There is very little being offered, being done, being said in the wider context around that thing that was so all-consuming, I guess, in our popular conversation for a couple months, right? But what is going to be the next catalyst? Like, what is it going to take to get some sort of response? Like, yeah, maybe when the Biden administration comes in, they'll start doing stuff somehow. But like, what is the wait? Like, what are we waiting for? And like, well, I understand. They're these politicians are, they're playing a game. Why didn't Pelosi take a deal earlier, before the election, to get more money to people? And it's a game. It's a political game. If the worse people do, the worse Trump looks, then it's easy for Biden to win the presidency. But they're terrible playing games. They thought that if Republicans try to rush in Barrett, then they would just be giving up the Senate. That didn't happen. Like, it's gonna be so like gridlocked. We have a highly conservative Democrat in the White House, and then just a completely locked up Congress. It's like, what is gonna happen, And I look at this from administrative standpoints on like the state level or the city level, the county level. Like, what are these people doing? Why did no one realize that after Thanksgiving, or during Thanksgiving and stuff like that these numbers would explode because people are gonna, over the summer, people are like, oh, shit's basically over. A vaccine is coming. I don't know if people realize that a vaccine is not a cure. I don't know. People are acting like when we get a vaccine, you just get a shot. You could be on your deathbed and you get the COVID shot and then you're good to go. You'll be, jumping around like you're fucking 30 years younger or whatever. That's not going to happen. And who knows what the distribution process for the vaccine is going to be like anyway, or how many people are actually going to get it, and what the actual effects are going to be. We don't know any of that shit. What anybody with any sense could have told you is that, hey, people are gonna go, if people have the ability to go and do shit for like Thanksgiving and the holidays, which has basically happened every single time we've had a holiday, right? There's gonna be a huge explosion in cases, and there's a bunch of holidays right after Thanksgiving. So what do you know? Like, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people are gonna die. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe. Who knows? And millions are going to be affected in one way or another. And we're going to have all this retroactive, like, oh shit, now that cases are going up, we got a lot. I mean, yeah, they have to show people that shit is going down to make it seem justified, because everyone was so mad about the lockdown in the beginning. But like, those people will be mad anyway. You know, the same people who are out in fucking Orange County, like with their pitchforks and shit. It doesn't matter how many people die, whether one person died or a million people die. If you lock things down, they're gonna get mad anyway. They don't care about justification. And again, if you really care about people staying home, make it reasonable at the very least, or easy. How about that? We could have been paying people to stay home from the beginning. We could have kept the market going by just giving money to consumers and letting them do their fucking thing, and finding some way. Like earlier in the year, I was like, why are we not treating this like a wartime situation? We have numbers of people that we're losing that are just unheard of, and we're just glossing over it at this point. It's just like another statistic to us. It's just something that we're getting used to. But it's like, if we had all these shortages and this chaos in grocery stores and whatnot, it's like, why don't we just ration necessary things so that everyone has access to what they need? Not just access, everyone just has what they need. And there doesn't need to be this sort of like chaotic back and forth of trying to figure out what the best thing is to do. I know I need to stockpile 10 tons of toilet paper or whatever, and actually provide some relief for the healthcare workers, grocery store, retail, fulfillment, meat, agriculture industries, who have been just slammed constantly from the beginning of this, who have just been raked over the fucking coals and turned into martyrs for really no fucking reason. Again, it shows like, what is the priority? Why are we prioritizing keeping this semblance of like, oh, it's fine, things can work out basically as normal. You don't have to worry about having any less bacon, or not being able to buy shit from Amazon, or going out to your favorite restaurants or whatever. Don't worry about that shit. You can still do all that stuff. It's fine. You just have to take a few precautions. But obviously, people who actually have worked, the workers who actually make those things run, are put at the greatest risk. And then we don't even have that anyway, because there's so many other people who still have to work, and so they take jobs. Either their jobs went away and they had to go work somewhere else, like a fucking grocery store or something like that, or they continue working wherever they were, because they don't have a choice, because you're just told stay home. Okay, I still have rent, I still have to pay for food, I still have other bills to pay, so on and so forth. What are people supposed to do? What are people supposed to think? Like, there are times where I want to like scream at like individuals and be like, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing like the right thing? And but it's like, yeah, individuals in a pandemic are empowered to create super spreader events, sure, but they're not in any way empowered to make decisions about our infrastructure, our government, and things like that. We have so little control over so many different factors in our lives. It's like, the one thing I can't control is whether or not I wear a mask and go outside and eat at restaurants, And because of our fucking psychotic sense of American individuality and exception, those are the things that so many people value. And of course, it's culturally backed by the political culture war, based on, which side of the line in the sand are you standing on. And this is what we get. And I don't think I'm saying anything too different than stuff that I said before on these kind of streams, but like, it's just so incredible how impotent and incompetent, and the continued negligence that we're seeing, and how we're really not getting anywhere with this shit. It just continues to get worse. And is it really going to get, are we really going to get a vaccine that's going to be distributed to 100% of people, or 70% of people, or 50% of people quickly and efficiently and cheaply and so on. Probably not. I'm not expecting to have a summer next year or a fall even, really. I don't know what the fuck is going to happen next year, but I don't think it's going to be great. I feel like the end of this is going to look closer to like the herd immunity arguments that we were hearing in the beginning. And we just managed to fumble our way to that point. It wasn't like a decision that was made, like, this is what we're going to do. It was just incompetence, negligence, and cruelty and greed has taken us to that point. You know, it's almost like we could have just fast forwarded through all this and be like, well, you know, say goodbye to your loved ones. We're all going to go stand together and cough on each other for a couple weeks until it all just sorts itself out. Instead of dragging this out for years, well, the same thing happens. But I mean, I guess like our sense of violence is damage over time. So if somebody dies, but it takes them a really long time, it's not violence. But if somebody dies instantly, then yeah, it's violence. So doing the whole herd immunity thing would be too gruesome, too violent. But having the same amount of people die over the course of like 2 years, I guess that's fine. Because what else are we supposed to do? Yeah, I really, I don't know what else there is even to say. It's like, I don't say this, you know, I don't go around with the goal of sending people into despair, but it's like, you can't just, I want to, you know, enjoy the holiday time of the year, and I want to, you know, just FaceTime and Zoom with friends and family and eat a lot of junk food and drink a lot of alcohol and hang out and all that stuff. And I have, you know, I'm reasonably set up to do those things comfortably and safely. For me, you know, which is very fortunate for me. But like, I can't not acknowledge, you know, where we are and how frustrating it is. Just to see so much of, again, what I just said, the negligence and blah blah blah. It is, I feel like the only thing there really is to do is just really not forget what happened, because 5-10 years, you know, we're going to have accepted all this shit. We're going to have moved on. It's just going to be something in the past. Oh, remember that? Ha ha ha. Oh, yeah, this person died. That person died. Yeah, whatever. We've already sort of changed as a society to accept that amount of death. So I can't imagine us looking back on this with too much horror. At least not in the near future. But really, I feel like the most I can do is to remember who did what and what actually happened and how it affected us. You know, how much our governments did and didn't do and what that did for people. You know, and I would be uncomfortable with the South Korean level of like tracing and tracking and all that kind of thing. Like the whole contact tracing thing to me, I already felt iffy about. I understand how it could be helpful. California is starting to implement app-based contact tracing. They just sent out, I think, like everyone's phone should have gotten something. I know mine did. Seems a little too fucking late at this point. Like, holy shit, how are we so behind the ball on absolutely everything? It's incredible. But I don't really like that solution. I much prefer pay everyone to stay home, because, you know, that's not reliant on surveillance. That, of course, the surveillance apparatus that's put in place for contact tracing for COVID is going to be used again at some point. Nothing, you know, anything like that is going to be recycled by the government. You know, there's no way. It's like how military surplus gets used by police departments, you know. So I never really liked that solution. But just trying to look at it soberly, even though the last thing you want to do during this whole fucking thing is be sober, actually trying to look at it objectively and trying to remember what actually happened and not letting it be whitewashed by history, like a Bush or an Obama or a Trump down the line, actually holding people to account. Because we're looking at the Biden cabinet, we're looking at the Biden administration. It's like, you're gonna get all the same motherfuckers in politics who jump in and out of the private public sectors every few years and just do the same shit, get us into the same issues, and run the society in the same way that makes us completely inadequate at addressing shit like a pandemic or even any other number of crises. So I don't know. There has to be something. Like, are we still too comfortable to really address these underlying issues that all add up to this horrific situation when the right circumstances come around, The answer may be yes, but I don't know. There has to be some amount of hope, and a sort of active hoping, right? Not just like Cornel West might say, right? Like not a passive hope, but a hope that is as part of an engagement, where you are actively trying to do something, Like, it's really hard to do things now, right? When you can't meet up with people, you can't really do things without worrying about, a deadly virus. But as we address that aspect, we can't forget what happened, because we have to come with the same, if not more, energy than we did in May and June, July, and whatnot. It has to be like that. It has to be sustained. It has to be organized, and it has to have clear goals to give the best shot of actually doing something about future crises, whether it's viral, whether it's climate, environmental related, probably economic, any number of things. Like, we need basically the same tools to address all of those things, because all those issues are intertwined anyway. We've talked about this on so many different of these streams, so many other people talking about this. I'm certainly not alone in that. I don't know. Yeah, I think to some degree, like, trying to be as plugged in as possible and keep track of every little thing is probably not going to be that helpful, but there needs to be some sort of collective memory of this. I think about, like, sort of like the first night of Hanukkah, the generational, cultural, collective memory of the history of a people, and there are different rituals throughout the year, remembering, times to be celebrated, times for mourning, and things like that. But this collective memory is very valuable in guiding a future. Obviously, it can be diluted over time and can be made to mean different things. But that's why we need to be on top of it and make sure we're remembering the right details and are ready to act when we need to act, so that we can clean up and address what has happened and move forward into actually changing up the game, so this kind of thing doesn't hit us like this ever again, So I don't know. I just really needed to go off about that. It's just like I've been just losing it, just seeing how ridiculous this fucking thing is, and and I'm probably one of the most in one of those fortunate situations, like my own situation. Like I'm in a good spot. I really very rarely have to put myself at any risk. I worry about my family because most of them are, they don't have to go out and do too much, but they're just choosing to do it, which is really, 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 I don't know, it sucks, right? And then there's like, okay, I haven't had to experience too much loss either, right? I mean, my industry doesn't really exist right now, but I mean, like personal human loss, I haven't really had to experience that yet. But still, it is, and I try to come from this from a place of like, I'm not just trying to be a scold. I'm not just trying to be right. I really like, I there's a need in me. We need to make things right. We need to build towards a society that can actually effectively address these things. One that will address the everyday crises of homelessness and poverty and whatnot that occur under quote unquote normal circumstances, and build on that, and we will be much stronger when it comes to these kind of crises that affect a greater percentage of the population. It is, if we fortify our weakest, our most neglected, the most neglected parts of our society, we will fortify society as a whole, right? So you're as strong as the weakest link. That there's wisdom in that, right? For a reason. So I don't know. I just hope that there are enough people who, once we regain a sense of like reality, I guess. I don't know what else to call it. If that's even possible, I don't know. But yeah, this is just what I've been thinking about. And the music, and a bunch of other stuff. I don't know. I don't know if it's helpful to sort of, because when you have all these different things swimming around in your head, it's like, it creates like a rub when you can't really put it all together sometimes. And even when you can put it together, you realize how much friction there really is in everything, and it can still be just as maddening. But for me, like I have to be able to put it together, to articulate it, and to start to think about what is the strategy for addressing all this shit, So I don't know if I've offered anything valuable in that in the past 45 minutes or whatever, but I just wanted to do one of these these old school patented talkie streams where I just kind of go off. I'm sure I'll talk about it a little bit more the next few weeks before I go on a little stream hiatus, but I just had to take the time to just go off. So I think that'll do it for today. I do have to go and do a couple things before I go attend a little Hanukkah. Laura's going to be doing a little thing with her family over FaceTime or whatever, and I'll be present for that. So making latkes. I think she'll already have made them by the time I show up, but I'll be eating latkes, which is nice. Yeah, so I'm gonna go do that. So everybody, next Monday, around 7, should be around normal time for some more Night in the Woods. There should be enough game to where I can do 2-hour streams and get through by the end of December, and that'll be that. And then next Thursday, we'll see. Hopefully I'll have a little bit more of the tune, but I don't know. I've been like unable to work on it. So I don't know. But maybe now that I have expelled when I need to expel, it'll be easier. I don't know. But yeah. Hopefully you're able to have a safe and relatively enjoyable weekend. Until Monday, I will see you guys next time. Toodaloo.